Alright, so welcome everyone to this Wonderdraft tutorial. You guys asked for it a lot. I didn't expect my post to blow up like this, but here we are anyway. So, inside Wonderdraft we are going to make a new map. And we're going to turn this into a 3D map in Blender. So first, make a new map. I'm going to select a 3K or 4K canvas and select my own theme. And just wait for the assets to load. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to turn the vignette down. I'm going to land the landmass wizard and change a bit. I want more roughness and more detail and generate a map. And this is what you do until you find a nice one, like so. Now I'm going to lower the coastal effects just a little bit. And what's important is that I save it first things first. Now Wonderdraft doesn't really know right now if I'm going to paint myself how high stuff is. So if I'm going to add an island, then it doesn't know if it's like 1 meter high or 5,000. For the generated land, it does, because it generates it using maps and such. So that's important, that you find a generated map that you like and don't have to change all that much. Unless there is a way, and I just don't know. So if we are happy with this, we have saved it already, we're going to export it into Blender. Now, how do you do that? You go to the Export tab and you select Height Map. Now click on OK and select it, type in a name somewhere you can find it later. Right, so we did that. And now we're going to head into Blender. Because quite frankly we don't know what the terrain looks like right now. Could be everything. So we're here in Blender. First I'm going to remove the cube and the light. I'm going to edit preferences, and under the add-ons tab I'm going to look for the add-on called import images as planes. This makes it easier to import images as planes. And now if I enable that, I go into the import tab and select it and select my height map, which is this one. Now as you can see, this is the height map that Wonderdraft creates. I'm going to rotate it and scale it a bit up. And as you can see, there's a height map. Now I'm going to the edit mode using the tab, Ctrl R to slice it in half. And now I just have two equally sized squares. And this is important because otherwise if you're going to subdivide it, it creates rectangles. Now I'm going to subdivide it to give it more resolution, really, just like an image, which is important for the displacement we're going to apply to it. So we go into the modifier tab, add a modifier and add a displacement modifier. Now I'm going to go to the new texture and select the height map that we generated using Wonderdraft. Now it looks like this, but it doesn't really look like how it looked in Wonderdraft, and that's because the projection of the texture is different. So go to Texture Coordinates in the Modifier tab and select UV. Now this looks more like it, but it's a bit extreme. So I'm going to add a plane so I have an idea on the water. And it's a bit high, really. It looks like how it looked in Wonderdraft, but it's a bit extreme. So how do we change that? We change it by going to the Modifier tab. And under Strength we're going to just lower it down a bit. Now this is a bit too subtle, which it could do. I'm going to use this setting. Now, still in Wonderdraft I have no idea what it looks like. So I'm going to make it a bit more extreme so that I see the shadows more. I'm going to the top view and I'm going to make a screenshot of this so that I can import it into Wonderdraft as a overlay image so that I can see what it looks like. So I'm going to make a screenshot and we're going to go inside of Wonderdraft. So here we are in Wonderdraft again, and we're going to go inside, well, first we save it of course, we go inside the overlay tab, select the trace tool and select an image, and here we're going to select our screenshot. We scale it up so that it fits our terrain, and as you can see this gives you an idea on what it looks like in Wonderdraft. This is important for when we're going to paint our map. Now painting, of course, it solely depends on how you want to make it look. Maybe it's covered with ice, maybe it's a sand dune, I don't know. I don't really care what it looks like, so I just made a shit map. So I made a grassy area right here. Up top north I'm going to have a few mountains with a icy-ish look, but also going to cover it a bit with forests. Now, if at any time I'm sure, I can just go to the overlay and make it more visible. Now, I'm going to add the stone color. And for my case, it doesn't really have to be perfect, but you can do this in Wonderdraft. You can also do it in Blender, but it's just a bit more work, really. So I would advise you do this. It's just easier. Especially if you don't really know what you do in Blender, this is just the way to go, because it's just so much more easily done, and you already know quite a lot from Wonderdraft, I suppose. So I'm fine with this. I just want a bit more stone look, so I'm going to add that back again. Like so. I'm going to save this, and we should wait a bit, and I'm going to export it as a multiplane. What this does, it separates the water from the land, from the symbols and such. This probably will crash Wonderdraft, so that's why you have to save beforehand. And as you can see, it crashes afterwards. But that doesn't matter because it does export the images, it's just inconvenient. So inside of Blender again, we're going to lower the strength in my case a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of the material, select diffuse, and under color I'm going to select an image texture, which is the landmass that Wonderdraft exported. I'm going to select that texture file, and as you can see, it looks shite. That's just my map. Yours will probably look alright. It will look fine. And for the water, I select glass. The IOR I set to 0.45, and the texture I use the water texture. And I'm just scaling it down so that it fits the playing area. Now it's a bit stretched out really, but that doesn't really matter. Now as you can see right here, if I'm going to render it, it looks alright, basically. But there are still a few more things we have to change. So I first add a multi-resolution modifier. This just makes it easier to subdivide it. I'm going to do that twice. I've got a beefy computer, so I can do this, but if you have a laptop, I wouldn't advise you do this. It will break Blender probably, or your computer. Right now I'm going to apply that, and as you can see, it looks a bit like Minecraft, really. That's because Wonderdraft just says, okay, this is this layer, which is this height, the layer on top is a bit higher, it's not that smooth. So what I do is I use the right click and then select Smooth Shader. But first I'm going to up the water level so that it matches the coastal area. I select the landmass and shade smooth, which makes it look a bit more realistic, a bit better. Now I want to add trees, and this is a bit more fiddly, really. I imported an asset from the Lapis pack. I'm going to select the 3D cursor and select the trunk. Now under Object, select Origin to 3D cursor. And this is important. Now, if I select the landscape, I go to Weight Paint. And this is where I paint the land so that I tell Blender, okay, this is where the trees will go. Area which is red is very dense, and blue just means that there won't be any trees there. So because I have a lot of vertices, a high resolution, you can say it's a bit slow, but it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to add in a smoother-ish, a bit more random, a bit less weight, so that everything gets a few trees. And what you can see is that below the water is also painted. So we go into edit mode. I'm going to select everything that's underwater. So the side, select the wireframe view and use B to select everything that's below it. Now under the object data properties, go to vertex groups, lower the weight to 0 and select assign. Now this will remove any weight data it had and replace it with a weight of 0. Now we go into the particle menu, add a particle, system, select hair, and what you see is everywhere there are hair pieces. Now I'll go into vertex groups and select group on the density, and what this does is that it only places hair where I said there should be hair. Now of course I don't want hair, so under render I render as object and I select the tree object. Could also be a 3D model of a tree. And as you can see, here are the trees. Now the scale is a bit more, should be lower really. You can make this as extreme as you want. Right now there are 1,000 trees. It is a bit scarce, so I changed it to 5,000. Which adds a lot more trees. Now of course those trees are white. You probably want a different color. That takes a lot of time. You have to set up the shaders and such, but so it's easier to just make a 3D model of it or just paint it using Photoshop or whatever. Paint it in a few different colors and then import those ones. So yeah, that's what you do. If you want the Game of Thrones feeling, you just move the camera from left to right, like so, which is a bit boring really, but if we go in the middle of it and we move the camera up a bit, like so, and then make it point down just a little bit and move it into a direction, now you can just hear the Game of Thrones music. Now add some post-processing effects and such, and it looks great. Now this is just the basic. You can make this as complicated or simple as you want. This is just how I did it, and it isn't perfect in any way, shape or form. So if you have any tips for someone or for me, let me know in the comments below. Share this, upvote it, like it, whatever you want. Let me know if you liked it or not. And I will see you next time, either on Reddit, here on YouTube, or on Discord. We will meet again.